So let's get started. Hi, everybody. My name is Jenny Neiswanger. I am the Vice President of Data Tech and Measurement and part of the Global Growth Council, Data and Tech Council. It is great to be here today. Today is the second session of 4, providing a deep dive into the CMO Guide to Programmatic Transparency. Today's session will focus on understanding the programmatic process and understanding the cost drivers. The CMO's Guide to Programmatic Transparency was created by CMOs and the foremost experts, including Karen Walker, Raja Rajamanar, and Zena Arnold, and was initiated as a direct response to the GGC Data Tech and Measurement Mandate #1. Optimize and create transparency in the programmatic media supply chain. Through the creation and implementation of this guide, the ANA is shaping the future of marketing and taking back ownership of our industry. One of the key contributors to this guide is here today to take us through the programmatic process and cost drivers, and it's a privilege to have Brad Moranchek, the head of global media for Kimberly-Clark. Brad, take it away.
All right, thank you very much, Jenny. Yeah, it's just want to say right off the start that it's a real privilege to be sharing this deep dive with you all today, starting to get into the Programmatic Transparency, guide to Programmatic Transparency a little bit deeper, help you unpack a lot of it. Programmatic is a channel capability that I've been passionate about since it got started, and even in the 7 years that I've been at KC, we've done a number of partnership opportunities with the ANA, including the bot baseline study back in 2015 and 2016. So helping to help make the programmatic supply chain better and work harder for advertisers is something that I'm passionate about, and glad to be sharing some perspective with you all today. And again, thankful for the ANA for the opportunity. So as Jenny said quickly, this is, we've got about an hour, maybe a little bit less. We'll see how the timing goes. But we'll kind of start with the objective of what this white paper is all about for those of you who may not have seen the first session, and also just kind of recap what that was very quickly. And then we'll dive into what Jenny said we were going to do, which is helping you to understand the programmatic process, really deep dive into the cost drivers, and then we'll close out with some thoughts that I have to help kind of guide your programmatic approach, which I think could really apply to any CMOs, business or advertiser, regardless of category or industry. So with this white paper, the goal was ambitious. As Jenny said, it was to help CMOs recover 10 cents on every dollar spent in programmatic digital. Because if you put all that together with 500 CMOs saving 10 cents on the dollar, or helping to optimize 10 cents on the dollar that gets spent in programmatic at the level that we spend in programmatic as an industry, that equates to $10 billion in more effective spend. So on January 29th, Jose Diaz from Aetna did a kickoff. You can probably click the link to watch his introduction if you haven't seen it. But what he did in that session was really introduce the white paper in a little bit more detail in terms of the concept. One of the highlights was talking about how 60% of programmatic spend is on fees and technologies. That's really important for everyone to know. And that's what this white paper is going to help address, is how do we, there's a lot of room in there, obviously, for optimization when so much of it is going to those fees and technologies. So how can you optimize? In terms of the how the white paper came together, as Jenny said, it was a very collaborative and diverse team, and it was a 2-year process. So there were experts from client side, agency side, vendor side, consultant help, all types of people that were able to weigh in on the guide as it came together. So we obviously feel really good about the final product, and it certainly has had a lot of folks like reviewing it and approving it, and know that it's going to help add a lot of value to everyone who reads it. And really, when you get to the heart of this white paper, once you kind of get through the upfront section that has more definitions and sort of some of the help you kind of understand how programmatic works, which I'm also going to talk about today. It's really about a crawl, walk, run, fly framework that you can apply with tons of useful information around questions you can ask, things you should be looking for, watch outs, pitfalls, opportunities, all those kinds of things as you kind of unpack sort of every aspect of programmatic advertising. So it's the kind of thing you're going to want to print, get a highlighter, look for questions, talk to your team about. But again, it should be incredibly helpful because there's a lot of questions that we encourage you to ask. And if you're not clear on what the answer to that question is, or have even like no idea of what the answer to that question is, it would be a good one for you to talk about with your teams and your partners. All right, so what is the crawl, walk, run framework exactly? And today we're going to be focusing on the crawl and the walk portion, which is really starting by helping you sort of know who you're working with and what you're paying for, very basics. And I guess we'll unpack sort of the programmatic, process and a lot of the fees that kind of come in it and what they mean and what they do and what they're for and how you can help spend them better or optimize them. And the second thing is to understand the functions and benefits of what you're paying for. So it's important to know, like, what are all the capabilities that exist, well as tools and technologies and fees that you're paying for, right? And what can they do and what can't they do? And a third session that'll be coming up, it'll get into more detail around like really leveraging those functions and benefits to a fuller extent. I think really starting to unpack a lot of the questions that we kind of pose in the white paper and talking through those with in more depth. And that'll be led by Rachel Mervis, who's actually on my team here at Kimberly-Clark. So session 3 is coming up, and she'll also get into the fly aspect of this guide, which is going even to the step further, which is really about maximizing the performance of every technology that you use and really future-proofing and having a roadmap for not just getting better of where you are today, but what you're really trying to drive to in the long term. Okay, so let's dive into the programmatic activation model, which is about the simplest visual of a very complex process that we could put together. But the good news is it's fairly linear. And so we're kind of going to focus on the middle here, right? And we'll just start with, you're the advertiser and you want to place an ad against a specific target audience that you have somewhere on the open web, whether that's on a desktop or mobile or even in-app. And you want to place that ad via a bid-based system because it can help you sort of find like very cost-efficient and effective ways to get that ad out there in a very targeted way. And really, at the end, when you think about programmatic, I think that the difference of it is that it's the biggest paradigm shift that it had is that it went from thinking about buying environments to buying consumer attention, and really sort of focusing on the audience first. Is who is it that I want to reach wherever they might be, on the web, whether that's again on their desktop or phone or an app. I want to be able to reach them with my message, and that's the most important thing, right? So it's kind of a pivot away from buying, more publisher direct content areas. Although that still can be an absolute successful tactic, right? But this is more about, there's a really specific audience I want to be able to reach. I want to be able to reach them in a cost-efficient way wherever they might be on the web when I'm in flight and in schedule and all those types of things. So that's what programmatic does. So you're the advertiser, you've got an ad you want to place. Obviously, it takes a lot of work to make that happen through a rather complex system, but making it simple, it starts with a team that you have, like a trading desk activation specialist, someone who knows how to work with the platforms and technologies to take the first steps to get your ad into the marketplace by defining your target audience, like finding the data source to reach that person, understanding the technology that it takes to sort of like load it into the system so that it can ultimately go out into the marketplace and reach that consumer that you're after. So you've got a department or an arm or a team, an agency that oversees that, right? The people that we kind of say are pushing the buttons and flipping the switches to drive the buy. So then when you move to kind of the middle, there's the demand side platform, or the DSP, right? And if you look at those two things, demand side and supply side, supply and demand. So what the demand side platform does is it's a technology that the trading desk person is working with to actually load the buy in. And that's the thing that That's the technology that really sort of helps your ad kind of connect with the supply side, to find the consumer, and then the place where you can reach that consumer at a bid price that you've kind of set some parameters around in terms of what you're willing to pay for it, right? So the trading desk person works on the demand side platform. The demand side platform technology does the work of kind of reaching out to the marketplace on the sell side, which the sell side is being fueled by publishers, right? So any .com you can think of that has ad space available, they kind of say, hey, these are the ad units that I have. This is the real estate that I have. These are placements that are, when people kind of come to my site, I can populate with ads. They make those aware to the supply side. So the supply side and the demand side talk. Might be a number of bidders trying to win any specific ad placement for any specific audience. And the ad goes to the highest bidder at the time. So that's how that works. And once that happens, the ad appears on the publisher site, and the customer gets to see, or the consumer gets to see the ad, right? A couple things on the top and bottom just to point out that that's really the process and how it works. I'll even make it simpler for you on the next slide with a pretty clear metaphor. But there's some things on the top and bottom that you see. Obviously reaching consumer audiences takes a lot of different data. You can use a lot of first, second, third party data sources to reach different audiences. DMPs and CDPs are places that kind of help store that data. The difference really between the two is that a DMP, or a data management platform, is more for third party data sources or cookie based sources, and a CDP is more for a consumer based custom data platform is more for first party data. So in all honesty, I think like right now, like DMPs, as cookies are going away, are probably less of a big thing than they used to be a few years ago. They're still out there. CDPs are probably more preferent, but these are the things that really help you organize data, warehouse data to find like insights, help with budgeting, all these kinds of things. So that's kind of a little technology that exists on top of it. And then on the bottom side, you've also got ad serving technology, which is really what tags your ad and kind of helps your ad get into the marketplace. It helps you get the data back that you need in terms of performance results and proof that the ad actually ran and all those kinds of things. So a little bit of technology in the top and bottom, but really when you think about what programmatic is, it's all about having an ad that you want to put out into the marketplace. And through a bid-based system where you've got support to do it, demand side technology that talks to the supply side to find out what those bidding places are, ultimately kind of getting to the consumer through the publisher. So the really easy analogy to make between programmatic ad buying is to really just draw a parallel to the stock market when you think about it, right? If the advertiser is like the stock buyer, the ad unit is the stock. The activation specialist, so your agency team is like the broker. They're going to go out there and help you get what you need. The DSP is the technology that enables the buying, which is what the stock exchange also has, platforms that help you do that. The supply side is the actual exchange where the stock is made available for buying, and the publisher is like the stock seller, or the person selling the stock. So very similar into how all of it works. So I think a lot of common technologies between the two. And that's kind of how it works. So a nice simple way to think about programmatic is something that we're all familiar with, which is the stock market. It's really not that different. Okay, so next thing that we're going to do is start to unpack, as I said, the costs of the programmatic ecosystem. So all those things that I showed on the chain and the slide previous are kind of back on here. And what's important to realize is that, for when you spend $1 on programmatic advertising, 60% of the cost, typically, again, that's not like a hard and fast rule, but guidance is that 60 cents of that dollar is going to all the technology and capability that it takes just to get the ad into the marketplace. And the other 40% of the cost goes to the supply side. The SSP platforms, collect a little bit for helping the publishers find the consumer and the winning bidder, and of course the publishers receive some of the revenue as well to help fund their content and their site. So again, with 60% of the cost on that side of the equation, you know, and this is the part that like advertisers really have a lot of it in control. I mean, this is the part that you are, you know, you want to understand like how your money is being spent in that area, and you actually have the ability to influence it. Okay, it's not a total black box, which is I think some of the myth of it. So when you really dig into it, there's a lot of capability that we all have within all of these technologies to kind of help optimize, and that's what we'll sort of talk about today. So the cost of that 60% is going to go towards paying your activation specialist, the people, you know, flipping the switches. That could be, maybe you've got a commission-based arrangement, maybe you've got an FTE-based arrangement, whatever it is. You know, maybe it's some other type of a flat fee that you've agreed to, but you're paying someone to set up your buy and help get it into the marketplace. So that's part of the fee. The DSP, that ad technology, also charges fees for the capability and that they provide. It is very possible for advertisers to have relationships, and actually encouraged for advertisers to have relationships with those DSPs. And I'll talk about that in more detail. At Kimberly-Clark, we certainly do that a lot. We have a lot of direct communication with our DSP partners, you know, sometimes with the agency, sometimes without the agency. But that's something that we've built up over the last few years. Didn't used to be the case. And I think that's maybe part of the, you know, I think some of the, you know, a myth around programmatic is that it's this, you know, black box, or that, you know, that if you're working with an agency that it all kind of sits on that side and you can't really, you know, dig into it. It's really not true anymore. All these green boxes, whether that's brand safety, ad servers, demand side platforms, all these types of, you know, partners and companies and capabilities like want to get to know the advertisers as well. So there's opportunities to build relationships and understand the costs and what they do, and make sure that they're providing you what you need for your buying purposes. So, so what are all the other things that are included here? The DSP fees I mentioned, you know, ad serving, there can be, there's a small cost for that. DCO fees may be an option. That's dynamic content optimization. So that's when you can be using more, you know, automated capabilities that kind of pick up on data signals of the type of like a very specific aspect of your audience, maybe like where they're from, what they're looking for, that kind of helps you, you know, customize creative, sort of personalized creative based on who that audience is. So there's DCO technology that can help make your programmatic sort of, you know, buying even like more personalized versus just having one message you're kind of blasting out to everybody. So you can, you know, have, not that we would advise this, but I mean, you can have like, you know, literally thousands of versions of the same ad by being able to kind of switch out images and copy and offers and all kinds of things. So if you're using that type of a capability, there's of course a fee for that. We'll talk about that just a little bit. Brand safety and ad verification, I'll probably spend a little bit more time on that because it's really important to programmatic transparency, and a lot for advertisers to learn there. And then lastly is data costs. And when we say data costs, that's really the data. When we say like the data is kind of the audience, right? So any audience that you're trying to reach, you know, most of the time there can be data fees to say, oh, if you want to reach this type of a person, this is what the cost is to reach that type of a person. You know, and here's a pool, here's a whole pool of this type of an audience that we can make available to you for, you know, at a, you know, cost per thousand basis or whatever it is, right? So like, there's a lot of costs that can kind of happen like on the data and the audience targeting side. It's probably the most complicated to unpack, and we'll talk about that. But you know, certainly opportunities there too to at least know what you're paying for being most important, and then find out if there's maybe like low or other no cost ways to reach sort of the same people using some of the other technologies that you have. So we'll get into all that today. So really we're going to focus on the buy side costs. All right. Let's start with your activation specialist. All right, so here's, you know, picture of, you know, an agency team sitting in an agency somewhere. It looks kind of modern and nice. They're working on their desktops. Maybe they've got two screens, but these are people who are trained and know how to actually activate, you know, programmatic buys. So your buy specs will kind of pass through them, and they'll load things into the system to kind of get them out into the marketplace. So when it comes to transparency and cost with your activation specialists, I think these are a few points of guidance that I have for everyone. Number one is have really clear scope of works, regardless of what your fee structure is. If you're, like I said, if you're paying a flat fee, if you're paying for like an FTE basis type of a thing, if you're paying on commission, however you're paying, you should say, well, I want to understand the team that I have working on my business and what the role of everyone on that team is, and I want to understand like what they do and all the steps that they take like within their role. So to me, the starting point of programmatic transparency starts with those people that you've got pushing the buttons and flipping the switches and knowing exactly what they're accountable to do. And if you're looking at this white paper, I mean, even as a starting point, and you're kind of seeing like all the capabilities that there are in terms of the types of reports that you can get and information you can get back, the way that things can be optimized, those are all things that you can kind of go back to them and say, well, I want to see when can I see this type of work, or and it helps you hold them accountable, right? So if it gives you something very clear to know, like we all agree that these were the type of work that you were going to do, I haven't been seeing it happening, or I have been seeing it happening, right? So just always a great practice, and you can work with your procurement team on this, you can work with consultants on how to draft good scopes of work. So long as you've got something, there are ways that you can get like other expert opinions in terms of like, how is the scope of work detailed enough, is it clear enough, does it look like, let's analyze, does it look like what you're paying for is worth the value of what you're getting compared to other things in the industry, right? So at least having that type of documentation is going to give you something stronger to go with, where you can get outside opinions on how strong it is, and if you're paying the right price for what you're doing. So but it begins with having a strong scope of work. I'd say another thing that's really important with your team is know what their philosophy is, right? I mean, programmatic is there's a lot of ways that you can sort of think about what you're putting out of the marketplace. So what's their approach to balancing price, quality, and performance, right? Because I think an important thing to remember about programmatic advertising is, yeah, it's about winning a bid and getting an ad in front of a person, but we also, more than the cost and the actual just the delivery of it, you want to know like what's the experience, right? So understanding how are they sort of looking at what you're buying and the way that it's landing, and the the mix of the size of the units that you're doing, like all those kinds of things, like how often do they track those types of things, so that you can make sure that you're not only reaching who you want, but also reaching them in a way that you want, in a way that you believe is going to help sort of drive your business. And then tied to that is aligning with your team on optimization metrics. Even for a single brand, there might be multiple strategies that you're using programmatic for, from upper to mid to lower funnel type things. So for any of those tactics that you're buying programmatic, how are we going to optimize? What are the types of signals of success or failure that we're going to be looking for? How are we going to be setting benchmarks so that we can kind of track and monitor performance to see if we're getting better or worse? We should be getting better if we're optimizing, right? Like, and if we're starting to get worse, can we diagnose what we think is causing that and make some adjustments, right? So very important to know how the team is sort of setting your campaign up to success metrics that align to your business goals. And then the last thing is, sorry, could I move my communication bar here because I can't quite read it. Is to align on like hygiene level reporting. So I think, again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying about what are the things that they're going to deliver to you on a regular basis to kind of help show the pacing of your spend, the quality of your spend, the all those types of things, again, that kind of get back to the ad experience. So like, not only what are you going to be optimizing to, but like how often am I going to be seeing how things are going, and what are the things that I want to see that help me understand how things are going. Again, when you go into the white paper, there's a lot of questions and things that you can ask for around like all these levels that I think Rachel will probably go into a little bit more depth into the next time around, but they're all there in the white paper. Okay, let's see, turn the page. All right. talk about DSPs for a while. And I'll put the disclaimer on the logos there on the left side. Those are for the purpose of example and reference, not necessarily or not at all recommendations of, who's the biggest, who's the best or anything like that. We leave that up to you to go out into the marketplace and discover. There are more partners than these. And all of them have different types of capabilities and strengths. So that's, just to kind of, but maybe to give you some names, to give you a frame of reference, we've put those here. So there's a lot that DSPs do. So we said we've got a fee, right? You're paying a fee for what they do, but there's a lot of capabilities that those DSPs are driving. They help import your audiences from your data sources, or they might have their own for you to use and kind of consider. Some of those fees we kind of talked about unpacking data costs, like that might be a way for you to save on data fees if they've got audiences already sort of built in and they don't charge a data fee for reaching those audiences. Those audiences are kind of similar to the ones that maybe you were paying another third-party source for, like pretty comparable, perform kind of equally. Go with the free one, right? Or the one that the DSP is providing. But they've got bid parameter tools. They are going to like really sophisticated stuff in terms of like how high you're willing to go, what's the minimum, what's time of day, like all the parameters around the buy in terms of time of day you want to activate, day of week, million different filters you can kind of put on there, but like lots of capability in there to make sure that you can set up your buy to be reaching your audience when you want, where you want, how you want, right? So that's part of what the DSP provides. You can get back log files of where your ads were placed, what sizes, etc. So there's like kind of reporting on what actually, where things landed. And it's also important to note that this is not just about digital display advertising, but also video advertising on the web and in-app. There's now connected TV opportunities through programmatic and these DSPs to place ads there, even digital outdoors. So the programmatic as a capability has expanded beyond just the mobile web. You can actually now as basically like all media becomes digitized, there's opportunities to place ads in other places. Just for the record, like social is a little bit separate. Social uses a similar bid-based system. We're not going to get into depth on this on that here, but it's kind of the same idea. So, but still, there's a lot of expansion in terms of where you can use these types of DSPs to activate and reach your audience. But I think it's like most, one of the most important things that you can do is, again, if we kind of talked about the crawl phase being like know who you're working with and what you're paying for. There's a great opportunity to really get to know your DSP providers. And I'll say like one of the best things that we did at Kimberly-Clark, even just 3 years ago, was we actually went through a DSP review process. So an RFP, we went out into the marketplace and said, we've been working with someone, and that incumbent also had a chance to participate. But it gave us the opportunity to have numerous meetings with a number of top DSPs, learn about what makes their capabilities different, what type of strengths they have, where they're exploring, what their roadmaps are. And it was just a great learning experience for us on the client side to really understand the breadth of capabilities that exist and start to build more of our own direct relationship with these partners versus saying, well, that's just kind of the agency team and they kind of work with them and they do all the stuff, right? Like it was important for us to learn what their capabilities were. So again, kind of going back to that agency accountability piece, we can ask the questions back. Well, all right, here's tools that they have. Are we using those kinds of things currently? How, are they successful? Do we need that? Like all that type of stuff, right? Just getting to know the capabilities of each partner, like not only for selecting the one that was right for us, but just even kind of knowing what was even possible out in the marketplace was like a huge help. So very good process to go through. Again, you can work on this either with your own internal team in combination with your agency partner, and we certainly did that with ours. They were a key part of the process in helping us determine our final recommendation. Outside consultants, whatever you want to do, but certainly one good way to really learn programmatic is to do something on that level, or even if it's at the end, like your agency partner who actually owns the master service agreement with the DSP, you still learn a lot by just being part of the process and of helping to select the one that you're going to be working with. Okay, turn the page. All right, so just some primary considerations for selecting your primary DSP. If you do go up to review, or if you want to think about, who's the one, or maybe you're just getting into programmatic, is how well does it integrate with the other ad tech that you have? You could also say, well, does it maybe even have, like I said, some of the audience features where I don't, have to pay for audience? Is that something that's important to me? Do I already have a lot of first party data, so I really don't need that type of a feature? I want to be able to more customize, like all those types of things are things that you can ask in your DSP review. But again, thinking about how well it integrates with the other ad tech that you already have is certainly a key one. What unique offerings and tools do they have? Can you pay for what you need only? Is another important thing, right? I think, when you're talking about driving programmatic, optimization, one of the things that you don't want to do is be paying for things that you're not using or don't need. And if there's a way to, really tailor make your agreements to only paying for what you need, that's going to help you save costs, right? And as I said, I just think it's just so if your agency owns the MSA, you can still get some specificity and transparency like out of their fee structure. It's important, I think, for you on the client side to have a direct relationship with your DSP team, and align with your agency and that partner on what's the partnership roadmap. Like, hey, what are we using today? What things are on the horizon? How are we sort of all working together, client, agency, and demand side platform, in terms of checking for success and progress and evolution, all those types of things, right? So, like I said, even if you don't own the contract, you can still be part of that relationship. You are not excluded as an advertiser, because the DSP and the agency knows, like, all of this is only happening, all these fees are only coming into both sides because of the money that you're bringing to the table and the advertising that you want to do. So you absolutely have a right to ask plenty of questions and understand how the process works, know how things are being paid for, know what the tech fees are going towards. Again, there may be some aspects that you don't have complete transparency into based on what the agreement is, or it may take a little bit of hoop jumping to get some of the information. But that's really when you start to get into some pretty really specific granular things. Lots of basic information you should be able to get just by asking the right questions and having the right conversations. Okay, next page. All right, now we're going to move into ad verification. And this is really critical to transparent programmatic buying. And what is ad verification? It is technology that is added on to your buy, like usually through a relatively small CPM add-on to your programmatic buys, that helps you avoid advertising to bots. There is still fraud out there on the internet. That was, like, as I mentioned earlier in the call, Casey Kimberly-Clark participated in a bot baseline study a number of years ago, and we learned that there were indeed, when we weren't really closely monitoring our ad verification, that we were wasting a lot of money going to fraudulent traffic, because it's very easy for bad players out there. It used to be, it's gotten tougher, but back in the early days of programmatic, it was pretty easy for bad actors to basically have bots go out and like visit websites think it's a person, your ad fires and on the page, and you get charged for that ad, but it wasn't seen by a person, it was just seen by an automated crawler, like triggering web pages, right? And then there's there's a whole potential funnel of like dark money that could have been going on from that. So you don't want to do that as an advertiser. Obviously, you don't want to waste your own money, and more importantly, you don't want to be funding illegal activity inadvertently. So all these ad verification partners will really help you guard against that and keep that to a minimum. I think at this point, like, we are like well under even like half of a percentage point of activity sort of going into like undesirable places. So it's very, very, very small. And that's kind of, again, it's a big thanks to these types of partners who help you do that. The other thing that ad verification does is it makes sure that you, in addition to like avoiding fraud and that type of activity, it actually also helps make sure that you run in content areas that you are comfortable with. So all of these partners have the capability to make sure that if there's depending on what your thresholds for brand safety are, that you meet those thresholds. I mean, obviously different types of categories, different types of advertisers have different tolerances. Kimberly-Clark being, sort of consumer care goods type of a company, we're a little bit more conservative when it comes to the types of areas where we're willing to appear. So we have, pretty tight brand safety controls. There's a lot of adjacencies that we don't want any part of. And ad verification helps us do that so that we run in places that we are comfortable with and reflect, where we want our audience to experience our message. And then the last thing that they can do, main thing that they do, is also give you a lot of performance and engagement metrics. So obviously, or maybe not obviously, but when you buy ad space, on a website, the website's got a lot of, any page has got stuff to scroll down to, right? When ads are, when a winning bid happens, you land on a page, you might be your ad winning bid might have been down towards the bottom of that page. Well, if the person who went to that page never scrolls down that far, you still pay for that ad, even if they didn't scroll all the way to it, right? So what you want to know is what this technology says is, was your ad viewable? And so you want to be, tracking, am I paying for, ads that are mainly being seen, or am I starting to pay for ads that aren't seen, right? And what's interesting is that there's actually a bit of a sensitive balance to this, where you can say, well, I don't want to waste any money. But of course, the way that the system works is if you might have to bid a lot of money to have 100% viewable. So it may actually be a little bit more cost efficient to have a little bit of non-viewable, and pay a better price for it. But the main thing is that, like, you're tracking it, you're watching it, you say, hey, all right, we're at a nice 80% threshold and we're playing really low CPMs. If I try to get to a 90% threshold, my CPMs double. I don't want to pay double to just reach 10% more of the people. I'm totally happy with this, right? So there's trade-offs that you need to think about as an advertiser in terms of viewability and what you're willing to pay for it, and how important that cost trade-off is. It's all about finding the sweet spot, and these advertisers help you do that. But not only just was the ad seen, but how long was it on screen, video playback, completion rates, hover rates, other forms of engagement, of course, click-throughs, all those things are helped to track through the ad verification software. So very important to have this on your buy. Again, like DSPs that we talked about earlier, you have the ability as an advertiser to sort of determine who is it that you want to work with. Even if it's your agency that owns that master service agreement, you should know who you're working with, what you're paying for, what their capabilities are, because they all have different expectations. They all have different types of tools. And there may be a way, depending on what your need is, just make sure that you're not paying for more than what you need or less than what you need. And that you're actually getting, you're seeing from your agency reports from how all these things are performing. Incredibly important to help you optimize your buys, ad verification. It might be the single most important thing in my view, in terms of really helping to understand how well your investment is performing out in the marketplace in terms of being seen, and not going into places that you don't want it to be, or into fraudulent traffic, because that's the biggest waste of money you can have. So these are safeguards that are worth paying for. They pay for themselves by what you're able to catch. And again, you can see all those types of things in the reports that they have in terms of how many things got blocked, how many things got through. It also has an opportunity, when things do get flagged, your agency partners or your activation team can kind of go back and say, hey, do we want to add, we almost want to bid for something place that we don't want to be, let's kind of add that to a permanent strike list, so that it doesn't even kind of come up as a possibility for it to slip through again. So you can have those types of things in terms of identifying, partners that you want to, always be able to have access to, or publishers where you always want to be able to have access to, other places where you want to make sure that you don't want to go. So they kind of help manage that list for you as part of their process, which again is another thing to kind of go back to in the scope of work in terms of the discipline that your agency team is putting into helping you manage against the types of things that they're learning or that they're seeing from the ad verification that you have. Okay. move on to the next page. All right. This one I mentioned earlier, right? That the data fees can be the most complex to unpack, and this is really just the type of thing where you just need to have like a good understanding of, for every audience that you're trying to reach, and again, every brand might be using a variety of tactics and have a different slices of an audience that you're trying to reach, sort of based on purchase behavior. Are they new to a category? Are they previous buyers? Are you is there male, female, like whatever it is, right? There's going to be like some differentiators in terms of like who you're trying to reach and what you're trying to say to them. Then every tactic that you use like requires some type of a data source to get there. Of course, first party data, when it's your data, you can use that completely for free because it's your data, and get that to your into the DSP and go ahead and look for it and to buy that audience. But a lot of advertisers don't have that huge wealth of first party data, so you've got to use other sources to kind of help reach people, and all those sources can kind of come with different costs. The main thing is just sort of knowing, hey, based on who my audiences are, like help me understand what the data fees are to reach that audience. And then, like I said, have that conversation. This is really into point 2 here, about, is that the most cost efficient way to reach that audience? What are the other options that we have? What if I change it from this to that? How does the cost change, right? So like understanding some of the initial data fees of what it takes to reach a certain audience will help you decide like what you're willing to pay for and what you're not when it comes to those things. So again, the bottom line here is understand all the audiences that your activation team is planning, where the data to reach that audience come from, and if it has a cost. So that's the starting point on that one. Okay, well, that's really like sort of the main points in terms of the fee structure. So we went through who you are, who you're working with, and what you're paying for, ways that you can think about doing that, and understanding the functions and benefits of what you're paying for on the demand side, which is really where most of the fees are that you pay for come from, because the other part of it is really just the actual money that goes to the publisher, who is, which is kind of the typical ad model that we're almost used to, right? So 40 cents is going to them, 60% goes to all the costs that I just explained, and hopefully you have a better understanding of what those things are and what their capabilities are, and ways that you can start to ask questions around to pay for. Again, so much more in the white paper itself for each of those areas. There's a ton of questions. Rachel in the next session will go into even more depth on all those things. So this is just kind of the initial grounding for you to help understand the landscape and what the sort of the gist of those fees and services are. So she will go into these ones. We're scheduled for August 24th. So a couple weeks from now will be session 3. Some final thoughts to take away to share with y'all. And these are things that I kind of steadfastly believe in as a leader in media marketing, advertising, whatever you want to call it, and specifically the programmatic space. I spent a lot of time working in it. I think it's important to know that with what we just talked about, there's a lot of good fees in programmatic, right? The technologies and capabilities of things that we do enable us to reach our consumers in more personalized ways than we were able to before. And the cost to do that, I think you can kind of say in many cases it's a fair cost because you're avoiding waste. It's helping you be more specific. It's helping you be more effective. All those types of things. So the fees in programmatic, are there, like not just to to take advantage of you, but to actually help you advertise in a more effective way. The key things are, and we talked about this a bit, but like don't pay for things twice. It can be very easy for fees to be duplicated. And we had found that on Kimberly-Clark, even from an ad verification standpoint, as important as that was to us, we were using a couple of different partners. Some of them had the exact same capabilities. We were paying for them to each do the same thing twice. We were able to generate a lot of savings by just kind of really crawling under there and saying, okay, we want to use these guys for this and these guys for this. I only want to pay them for this and them for that, because we were doubling down on some of it. And there's lots of opportunities in programmatic for those things to happen, whether that's ad verification or a DCO and an ad server. Sometimes those things can be one and the same. The data fees, like I talked about, you might be paying for an audience that you don't even need to pay for because there might be a cheaper or a no-cost solution. So those are really important things to look out for, and don't pay for things you don't use. There's a lot of capabilities that these partners and tools have. If upon further examination you learn that you're paying for something that we don't really need that feature, or the agency's not even using it, we don't really see what the value is, it doesn't help our business, see if there's a way for you like not to pay for that, because a lot of the things, again, like agreements kind of get set up, they assume that you're going to use it, but until someone really digs into it and sort of looks at it and says, is very clear on how much or the value that it's coming out of it, you might be paying for something that you don't really need to. So and then on the same side of that, or the other side of it, is, hey, request proof of value performance for what you are paying for. So we talked about ad verification. You should have access to those reports. You should be understanding how things are performing. You should, if you know what the capabilities are, you should have every right to kind of ask, like, well, how are those capabilities being used? What types of things are we seeing, et cetera? So that's another good way to make sure that you're getting the most out of your fees in programmatic, is, also make sure that for the things that you are paying for, that you're getting the value that you expected. Second big point, and when it comes to programmatic, is that, to me, true programmatic transparency also illuminates the consumer experience you're buying. I think that there's a lot in the industry when we talk about transparency that's very cost driven. And obviously that's very important. But I think it's important for any advertiser to not just think about what are the costs and how can I optimize and how can I save more money, but like, how am I really making sure that the consumer experience that I'm paying for is delivering what I would expect it to, in terms of who I'm reaching, with what, where, how well it performed. So again, with the technology and the partners that we talked about today, whether that's your DSP or ad verification or even DCO technology, like, those are things that can give you feedback on what's happening. And you should be looking at, hey, what are the log files? Where have I been running? Am I, maybe I'm happy with the low price that I'm paying and I can see that I'm getting a pretty good reach and an audience number, but if I'm reaching them on a whole bunch of like really small, low impact banners, maybe I do want to increase my bid. Maybe I am willing to pay a little bit more for a better advertising experience to get more view through rates or viewability and those kinds of things, right? So it's important that everything sort of be looked at as a balance that you have to, accomplish. And remember that, this is not just a, only a performance driven like type of a channel, but one where you're trying to like influence consumers on a potentially on an upper or even a mid funnel level. So thinking about the advertising experience that you deliver there is important. And you should have a clear understanding of the guidelines and guardrails in place to help ensure that quality ad experience. And you should ask for reports on how things are going, and you can align with your programmatic team on how to do that. The third final point of the four, so we're almost done, is that the programmatic supply chain wants to partner with you, right? This is a very, legitimate industry, and I know that there's a lot that kind of gets, published, and I think we're trying to bust some of those myths with the white paper that we have, and and through these conversations that, that programmatic is this like black box that nobody understands, and none of the money ends up going to reach the consumers. There's all types of things that you see out there that even can be kind of cynical about it. But when you really get to know the people who work in the business, whether they're on the DSP side, ad verification, DCO, I mean, these are companies that exist to help us advertise more effectively. They want to see us succeed. They succeed when we succeed, right? And more people engaged help drives more accountability. So highly encourage everyone, whether it's yourself or through your teams, to start to build, relationships with all of the people in this programmatic supply chain that you're working with, and learn about what they can do, learn about how they can help you, because they're there to do that, and they're good people. They're advertising people just like us. And the last point is that the future of programmatic, it is really exciting. More channels will be purchased this way regularly. I talked about connected TV and digital out of home. It's becoming, and then you start to think about, wow, I can really start to actually optimize and, reach and manage my plan like in a multi-channel way, like through the same buying platform, which is pretty exciting. The automation capabilities continue to improve using richer and richer data signals. So again, we continue. I still feel like we're like 10 to 15 years into the programmatic era, and it still feels like it's kind of at the beginning in terms of what the possibilities are in terms of where AI can take it, and how sophisticated and good at reaching people in an effective way the automation can kind of help us get. And then the last thing is that, hey, cookieless audience data will become the norm. And while a lot of people, when that announcement came from Google a couple of years ago that the cookies were going away, even though Google now keeps delaying it even another year until they're going to sunset the cookie, I believe that really it's a good thing, because when you're solely reliant on cookie-based third-party data, you don't really have control over the consumer experience. It's, you can be reaching the same person over and over again with the same message, versus when you're using first-party data, you have that in-house, and you can really manage your communications and the flow and the frequency and the order of which things appear, kind of based on the signals that come from that audience, versus like always kind of going back out into the same pool and not really knowing who exactly you've reached each time and what they've seen before. So I think the cookieless future is actually a good thing for the ad agency. And it's going to help improve both advertising performance and audience benefits. So lots of good things still to come. But it all starts by the folks who have tuned into this webinar and are reading the white paper, getting a little bit more involved and helping to drive better performance on a channel that has tons and tons of potential to do great things for your business. So with that, I will conclude